This is part 2 of the puzzle of writing a citation. In this portion, we're going to look at how to put together the reference, understanding MLA and APA style in a little more detail. So start with MLA because it's a very common one, but MLA has a very interesting idea of containers. This concept of containers is one that I think is useful for understanding writing citations more generally. And the idea of containers is pretty simple and straightforward. Let's say that you have a book and you are citing, using as a source, one chapter within that book. Well, then the chapter itself is your source, but it is contained within the book. So the book is considered a container for the chapter which you are citing. Here's another example. You have watched an episode of a particular documentary series, and you were interested in citing as a source that episode of the larger series. Well, the episode is your source, and it is contained within the larger series. So the series itself is considered the container for the particular episode. So I really encourage you to go to stylemla.org or Cited a Quick Guide because they explain this well, and they also give you this little diagram right here as well as a template and examples. In fact, these examples provided here are actually taken from MLA, and it's worthwhile going to the website to look at it a little more closely. But first, you'll notice that the numbers correspond to particular pieces of information. So one is the author, and here we have it marked in yellow. So Edward Copeland is the author, followed by the title of the source. Here is a chapter he wrote entitled Money. And the chapter is included in a title of a container, the container which is a book, The Cambridge Companion to Jane Austen. So this is the container. Other contributors, that's often translators, or in this case, editors. So it's edited by Copeland and Juliet McMaster. And here, we don't have a version or a number. We'll come back to those. But you have the publisher. So Cambridge, and UP stands for University Press. And then the publication date, followed by the location, in this case, the page numbers of this particular chapter. So you can see how these various pieces fit together, allowing us to understand what the source is, where it is found, and all the various important pieces of information. Let's look at another source. Here we have an episode of a video series. In this case, we don't have a particular author, so that information is not included here. We just start immediately with the title of the source, Curiosity Rover Report, 3 Years on Mars. And the container for it is the larger video series, NASA's Journey to Mars. It's edited by Sarah Love, and then it's published by National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. The particular publication date, and because we know specifically the date that information is provided, along with the location, here's the website. In this next one, we have a journal article. Again, we have a sense of the author, the title of the source, which is the title of the article, the container, which is the journal title. In this case, we have the number of the volume as well as the issue. Version, we don't have an example here, but often is the edition of something, so 4th edition or 2nd edition. That's usually what we provide, version. The publication date, location. And in this case, they also have the database information, which database and the specific link that allows us to go and find this source. So you can see these are puzzle pieces that you fit together to create the source. And MLA has a particular order that they do things in. And there's also certain formatting things you should pay attention to. Here they indicate periods after these things and then commas after these. And notice also the title of the source is often in quotation marks, the double quotation marks. And the title of the container is italicized. Note also that things are capitalized, as we typically do. So Understanding the format and that you're fitting together different pieces is really important. Let's take a look at APA style. Again, you can find it. This is a great website for finding more. It's from the APA and it's up to date with their newest style guide. Often the organizations will change the style guide every few years to make it more current and relevant with all the different types of sources that come out. So it's good to know where you can find the most up-to-date information. So here we go. We see that APA has much of the same kind of pieces of information. We have the authors here, and you can see there's a lot more authors. So we separate the authors with commas, and we also use their initials. Here we have the date of publication. Because APA is really interested in the date, this comes up earlier. Then we have the title of the article, the container, which is the journal title, along with the number. This is the volume number, followed by the issue, along with the pages, and then a bit of a link to direct us to the specific article, and its DOI number, which is a very specific number linked to particular sources. So you can see that, again, many of the pieces are very much the same, but they might be in a slightly different order, and they also might be written in different ways than what we see with MLA. So learning the format is really helpful. It's kind of almost like a pattern or a formula they can figure out. Notice also the quotation marks are not used here, and that they don't capitalize all the words in the article title. Here we have another example of an online article from the New Yorker. So the author name, in this case, we have a specific date of publication. Here's the title of the story or the article. Here's the container, which is the magazine itself. And then here is a link. And you want to find links that are permanent, not temporary links. So make sure you're checking that you have the most permanent link possible. Final one here is your authors, publication year, title of the particular chapter, and here it's in, and here's the editors, along with the title of the book. Here are the pages that it's included in, followed by the publisher, and then the DOI number. So again, these are all pieces of a puzzle, and the challenging thing as somebody who's writing a citation is figuring out which pieces go where. So if you've learned that things are typically written in certain ways for each of them, then you can start fitting the pieces into the correct pattern. Let's take this for example. And this example is really great because it shows you that sometimes things don't fit neatly into one category or another. So understanding that you're looking for particular pieces of information and have to fit them together is really important, because you're not always going to be able to use a citation tool to create your citation. And in this case, let's look at the various different pieces. Well, first of all, this looks like your typical journal article. I pulled this out of my archives, and I thought it was a journal article, but then I looked a little more closely. Well, it has the journal information down there, as I expected. Here it has this symposium. I'm not sure what that means. The title, okay, I know what a title is. And then I noticed where I would expect author information is actually editor information. So while I thought this was a journal article, I'm starting to see that there's something else going on. It's not what I typically expect. Then I find out that as I scroll through the document, that there's actually a number of different authors writing smaller pieces that form this larger symposium. So this symposium is a larger container within the journal itself, which contains this. So it's not a journal article, in this, as I usually expect, but at the same time, it's a part of this journal. And so I have these little pieces within this larger symposium container within the larger journal itself. So I have to kind of figure out how I'm going to present this information. So for the sake of this example, I'm going to take this particular piece and say that I'm quoting or I'm citing this particular piece of the larger symposium. So again, I'm trying to understand which parts are my containers and which parts are my pieces, and putting them together. Now you'll notice that these are two citations that are the same source. It's just done two different ways. Can you figure out which one is MLA and which one is APA? If you guess that the first is APA, you would be correct. And the second one is done in MLA style. So again, I've taken the various pieces and I've applied them into different patterns. APA, again, I start with the author and then use their initials and the year. Then this is the title of the particular piece I was interested in. And then I use in and include the editor's information. And then here's the title of the symposium itself. And this is within the journal, the volume and the number, and then the specific pages. Similarly, in MLA, I use the name of the author, the title of the particular thing, the title of the symposium, the editor information, the journal, volume, number, the year of publication, as well as the pages. I had to make choices when writing this. I had to determine how I was going to introduce this idea that I was part of a symposium. In APA, I could put in and have that information here, as well as the journal title. But here, I just wasn't sure what I could do, but I knew it was important to include that it was part of a symposium. So I included the symposium in quotation marks here, as well as the journal article. I also had to choose what page numbers I was going to put. And so I ended up choosing to put the symposium full pages versus just the pages for this particular piece. And I could have maybe chosen differently. But again, sometimes you have to choose how you're going to present something, what categories, what information, and you try to make it as easy as possible for your reader to find it. Again, it's important to learn how to use various formats. Generally, you try to pick the formatting style that works best for your particular field. For my case, I've learned APA over the years of using it, but others use MLA. But citation tools can mess up things or not be able to figure out the category that you're looking for. So that particular source that I just showed you, my citation tool might not have been able to figure out that what was going on with the symposium and the particular piece. And so I had to kind of craft the citation and the reference myself. So being able to understand the patterns allow you to make sure that the information that's provided is accurate. And also, if you do use a citation tool, to go and double check that everything is presented correctly and that it's not picking up a different piece of information, and using something that's not actually the title as the title, or not picking up on the website, or not picking up on the DOI number. So knowing the patterns, knowing the formats are really important. Also, being able to write your own citations, write your own references, means that you're more aware of what you're citing and understanding, how recent it is, and understanding what it is and what kind of source it is. So that's always a good thing to know. Finally, understanding, again, that references are a rhetorical practice. They will depend on audience, purpose, genre, and medium. And knowing that you're not just doing citations because that's just, like capitalizing letters, that there's a reason behind it is really important. Let's take a final look at what we mean by this. Different rhetorical situations have different reference practices. On the left here, we see a scholarly article using API style. So this is what we typically think of with citation practices. Here is our in-text parenthetical citations, as well as a couple of narrative citations. On the right side, however, we're using an online article from a popular source. And again, popular here means for general public versus a scholarly article. So this one is taken from the Smithsonian Magazine, it's an online article. And you'll notice that in this case, we don't have the parenthetical citations. What we do have are some titles. They're pointing us to various books. Okay. They also have hyperlinks. This one takes us to Smithsonian Magazine article on Charles Darwin's father, Erasmus Darwin. So this is an interesting thing where you're able to go learn more information. And in this case, it's also published with Smithsonian Magazine. So you're able to learn more information just by clicking on something. But here they have narrative citations as well, the title of the book here, along with publication date, and explaining it. Notice also, here's something interesting. They interviewed an expert, a historian who knows about these books and stuff. And so they provide the name of the historian as well as a sense of her credentials. And this is kind of like our in-text citations here, but it's a little bit different because they have to provide a little more background information and credentials. Again, we have a hyperlink for more information on this particular thing. So you can see that we've got some citations allowing the writer to show that they know what they're talking about, pointing us in the direction of more information, okay, using an expert for credibility and giving some background for these quotes. But it doesn't look the same way as it does in a scholarly article. But this is still citing information, giving us a sense of where the information is found. So to wrap it all up, citations and references are information for finding a source. And you want to provide as much information for your readers as possible. They give credibility to you. They show that you have a good sense of what the topic is and what their ideas are and who said it, and that you can find credible sources. Importantly, the ways that we write citations and references and use them depend on our rhetorical situation, including the discipline and what information we value as a discipline. Again, going to visit the APA and MLA guides are very helpful. Those are two very common citation styles, and getting familiar with at least one of them will help you in the long run. Thanks for watching, and as always, feel free to ask me questions, and the slides for this are available on Sakai.